Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following segment is made for entertainment and educational purposes only. These are all simply allegedly made details, and nothing is official. It happened just moments ago. Cameras were banned, phones confiscated, and the gallery seated in heavy silence. But the energy in the room, uncontainable. Sean Diddy Combs sat motionless at the defendant's table, flanked by attorneys, surrounded by shadows. Everyone knew today's witness was DaBaby, but no one expected this. He took the stand without hesitation. Sharp suit, sharper eyes. The bailiff swore him in, and when the prosecutor asked if he had knowledge relevant to the case, he didn't answer with a yes. He answered with a name. Beyoncé. The courtroom froze. Pens dropped. Reporters widened their eyes. Even the judge looked momentarily stunned, because this wasn't just another celebrity named in a high-profile case. This was the Beyoncé, the queen of pop culture, an icon wrapped in layers of perfection, precision, and public worship. Untouchable. But DaBaby didn't blink. He continued. "I have footage," he said. "Footage that the world hasn't seen. And in that footage, you'll see why Diddy thought she was his." The prosecution leaned in. Diddy's lawyers shifted, and the ripple hit Twitter before the stenographer could catch up. Diddy, Beyoncé, girl, footage. 4 words that detonated a media firestorm. Was this clout chasing? A misguided headline grab? Or was DaBaby holding the detonator to a decade-long secret buried in the glitter of fame? Because according to insiders inside the courtroom, DaBaby claims to possess video evidence. Video that allegedly captures a private interaction between Beyoncé and Diddy that recontextualizes everything. Not just their friendship, not just their careers, but the power dynamics hidden beneath their empires. And if what he says is true, this could be the most explosive twist in the Diddy case yet. He reportedly described the video as personal, intimate, and off the record. A moment from 2015, backstage, away from cameras. Beyoncé and Diddy, no entourage, no spouses, no barriers. The court has yet to admit the video as formal evidence, but already whispers are growing louder. Is Beyoncé involved in this story deeper than anyone realized? And if so, how long have the people around her kept it hidden? Because DaBaby's testimony wasn't subtle, it wasn't reckless, it was calculated. He looked the jury in the eye and said, "You're asking who Diddy had control over, but maybe you should ask, who gave him that control?" And with that, the narrative changed. This isn't just about Diddy anymore. This is about the system, the silence, the secrets. And for the first time in a courtroom filled with scandal, the name Beyoncé has entered the record. It sounds impossible, unbelievable even. Beyoncé, an artist who has spent 2 decades crafting one of the most flawless, untouchable images in entertainment history, now tied by name to one of the darkest scandals the music world has ever seen. But if DaBaby's words under oath mean anything, then this story is no longer just a Diddy story. It's bigger, older, stranger, and it begins where most people never thought to look, the spaces between headlines. Because this connection didn't start in a courtroom. It started quietly in green rooms, studio hallways, and private events where only the elite were allowed. Beyoncé and Diddy have shared stages, award shows, and industry backrooms for years. But behind the polished smiles and glamorous photos, there have always been whispers, soft ones the press never dared to print. Insiders now point to a timeline that spans more than 20 years. Way back in the early 2000s, Beyoncé was still transitioning from Destiny's Child to solo superstardom. Diddy, already a music mogul, had a reputation for taking young talent under his wing. And according to one music executive who spoke off the record, Diddy always made it a point to be where Beyoncé was. At first, it looked like strategic alignment. 2 powerhouses rubbing shoulders, sharing clout. But over time, things got blurred. Whispers began about overly familiar moments at events, extended private conversations, and a level of access that didn't match the usual industry hierarchy. "He didn't treat her like a peer," said one former security guard. "He treated her like she belonged to his world." What's more disturbing is that Beyoncé wasn't just near Diddy in public. There were private encounters, ones we're only hearing about now through courtroom whispers. The most glaring, a now infamous 2015 industry party, long whispered about in VIP circles but never confirmed. According to multiple unnamed sources, Beyoncé and Diddy disappeared for over 30 minutes during the event. Their entourages claimed it was for a business talk, but DaBaby, speaking from the stand, claims he saw more. He says that night wasn't about music, it wasn't about networking, it was about control. And that's the recurring word insiders keep using, control. Because if Diddy had any hold, real or perceived, over Beyoncé, the implications are staggering. It means one of the most celebrated women in the world may have once been under the quiet influence of a man now facing a slew of disturbing accusations. And it raises the question, was Beyoncé a willing participant in this power dynamic, or another pawn in Diddy's long game? There's no definitive answer yet. No footage has been released. No formal statement has been made by Beyoncé's camp. But what has been released is a narrative, one so carefully buried that only now, with courtroom light piercing every corner, is it being seen for what it might truly be. Because if DaBaby is right, if Beyoncé was ever seen, not just as an artist but as Diddy's girl, then everything we thought we knew about the industry's inner circles was just a mask, and the real face of power was hiding in plain sight. If Beyoncé's name being uttered in court sent shockwaves, the next name dragged into the narrative was inevitable. Jay-Z, not just her husband, but her business partner, her co-headliner, and the architect behind some of the most iconic brand moves in modern music history. And now, possibly, a man betrayed. Because what DaBaby hinted at from the witness stand isn't just that Diddy had a moment with Beyoncé, it's that Jay-Z may have known. Worse, he may have known for years. And that knowledge, buried under the weight of empire building and image management, might have been the very thing that fractured his relationship with both Diddy and his wife behind the scenes. Industry insiders have always sensed a quiet competition between Jay-Z and Diddy. Both black billionaires, both commanding music labels, fashion lines, and liquor empires. But there was always tension underneath. Events where they were cordial but distant, collaborations that stopped cold, deals teased but never finalized. That coldness, sources now say it began right after 2015. That same year, DaBaby claims to have footage showing a private interaction between Diddy and Beyoncé. Multiple industry figures reported that Jay-Z began subtly pulling away from his old circle. One former Roc Nation strategist, speaking anonymously, said, "There was a shift. One day we were greenlighting Diddy for events, the next it was radio silence." Was it business? Maybe. But a closer look at the timeline reveals something more personal. Around 2014 to 2016, Jay-Z and Beyoncé's marriage was publicly tested. The infamous elevator incident between Solange and Jay-Z, followed by Beyoncé's Lemonade album, painted a story of betrayal, forgiveness, and fire. Many fans assumed Jay-Z's infidelity was with a background figure, an anonymous Becky with the good hair. But what if the pain cut deeper? What if it wasn't infidelity in the traditional sense? What if it was proximity to another powerful man? Some now speculate that Jay-Z didn't just feel jealous of Diddy as a peer. He felt threatened, emotionally, psychologically, maybe even romantically. Diddy knew how to get in people's heads, said one former associate. He didn't need to sleep with someone to mess with your mind. All he needed was access, influence, and silence. And if Diddy had that with Beyoncé, even for a moment, it's easy to imagine how that would shatter trust in a marriage built on public perfection. Even more damning is what DaBaby implied next, that Jay-Z saw the footage years ago, that it wasn't new, that he'd known, kept quiet, and built a multi-billion-dollar brand with Beyoncé anyway. Whether or not the footage showed anything romantic, it meant something. Enough to reportedly create lasting rifts, enough to plant doubt, enough to sever ties between titans who once moved the industry in unison. In the world of celebrity, image is everything. But in the shadows behind that image, jealousy, resentment, and humiliation are often the real script. And if Jay-Z's withdrawal from Diddy was really about Beyoncé, then the silence over the years wasn't just damage control, it was survival. the quiet unraveling of a personal empire built on loyalty, shaken by one unseen video and a whisper that never went away. Inside the courtroom, the phrase unseen footage carries weight. It doesn't just suggest evidence, it suggests revelation. And according to DaBaby, the footage he brought forward isn't just proof of a private interaction between Diddy and Beyoncé. It's a glimpse behind the curtain, a raw, unfiltered moment the public was never meant to see. Court transcripts show DaBaby describing the footage as short but powerful, a single clip, less than 2 minutes. But within that time frame, he says everything changes. No words, just expressions, touch, eye contact, proximity. Body language so intimate, so undeniable, that it shifts the entire context of the Diddy-Beyoncé relationship. The moment, according to DaBaby, was captured in 2015 during the BET Hip Hop Awards, backstage just minutes before Beyoncé's surprise appearance in a tribute segment. DaBaby, who claims he was present due to a last-minute performance slot, says he noticed a corner room where Diddy and Beyoncé stood alone. No security, no assistance, just them. What the footage shows, if it's real, is Diddy placing his hands softly on Beyoncé's lower back, leaning in, whispering something. She smiles. Not the posed, rehearsed smile the public's used to, but something else. Personal, familiar. He brushes her cheek. She doesn't pull away. Then, just as someone enters the hallway, she steps back. Diddy straightens his jacket. They walk out separately. That's it. Less than 120 seconds. No audio. No scandalous act. But the energy in the footage, DaBaby insists, says everything. More footage allegedly exists. A second clip, not yet submitted in court, supposedly shows Beyoncé aboard a private yacht in 2018, Diddy's yacht. The scene includes a handful of celebrities. Jay-Z isn't present. Beyoncé is seated beside Diddy. Her legs are crossed toward him. Their knees touch briefly. Again, no overt behavior. But again, something that doesn't look accidental. A third file, according to DaBaby, contains a string of photos, not videos, screenshots from exclusive industry parties, reportedly taken by a high-profile event photographer who was later paid to never release them. DaBaby doesn't explain how he got these files, only that they're time-stamped, watermarked, and never before seen. The courtroom is still deliberating whether these materials are admissible, but just the suggestion of them is enough to rock the foundation of the narrative, because what they imply isn't scandal for scandal's sake. It's about power, proximity, hidden lines between protection and possession, and that word, possession, keeps coming up. If the footage is real, then it reveals more than just closeness. It reveals entitlement. The way Diddy touches her, speaks to her, walks beside her, it all paints a picture of a man who believed he had a private claim to the public's most protected star. And for DaBaby to say under oath that Diddy treated her like she was his isn't just provocative, it's indicting. Because in a case about control, secrets, and manipulation, a video like this doesn't just raise eyebrows. It raises doubt. Doubt about what we've seen. Doubt about what we've believed. And most of all, doubt about how far Diddy's influence really went. Beyoncé doesn't move through the world alone. Every step she takes, every appearance, every post, every award is supported by an army. A tightly controlled, highly vetted inner circle of advisors, assistants, bodyguards, PR specialists, stylists, and security professionals. Her team isn't just a team, it's a barrier, a fortress. And yet if DaBaby's claims are true, someone inside that fortress had to know. That's where the next layer of the courtroom drama begins. Not with Beyoncé herself, but with the people around her. Because if there really was a moment or multiple moments of personal closeness between her and Sean Diddy Combs, those interactions didn't happen in a vacuum. They happened in rooms full of eyes that were paid not to speak. Insiders now whisper that Beyoncé's inner circle had what's being described as a soft Diddy protocol. Not a strict ban, not an outright restriction, but rules. Quiet ones, invisible to the public. One former backup dancer from the Formation Tour claimed that Diddy was considered a no-go topic. If he was at an event, Beyoncé's schedule was restructured. If his name came up in interviews, it was dodged or redirected. And then there's the security team. According to one court-sealed affidavit leaked to investigative reporters, a longtime personal bodyguard allegedly flagged an unusual comfort level between Diddy and Beyoncé during a 2018 charity gala in Los Angeles. The guard, who was later reassigned, claimed Beyoncé dismissed the security team for a brief period during the event. During that exact window, she was seen entering a restricted VIP lounge where Diddy was already inside. Why would her team allow that? Why would anyone in her inner circle step back unless they had instructions to do so? That question is now central to what's being called the complicit silence. It's not just about what happened, it's about who let it happen. And in a courtroom obsessed with control, silence can be just as damning as action. Another troubling detail comes from a former PR consultant who allegedly worked with Beyoncé's camp during the Lemonade era. They testified anonymously that Diddy's name was on the list. The list in question? A confidential dossier of figures Beyoncé's team considered high risk for narrative disruption. The consultant claimed the list was used to flag individuals who could potentially cause brand complications, either through media leaks, personal histories, or unresolved affiliations. Why was Diddy on that list? Was it due to their past proximity, their rumored history, or something even deeper, like knowledge of footage, photos, or secrets that had been buried under NDAs and silence? To understand how something like this could be hidden for so long, you have to understand how celebrity networks operate. They're not just about managing appearances, they're about managing truth. Access is currency, secrets are power, and the people closest to a celebrity like Beyoncé don't just protect her, they filter reality. Which brings us to the next layer of cover, the media. Multiple journalists now confirm that Diddy and Beyoncé stories, especially those suggesting personal entanglements, were often flagged and buried by editors before they ever hit the public. One former pop culture editor from a major outlet claimed, "It wasn't that we didn't have stories, we had them, but we knew the risk. You publish something like that, you lose access forever. It wasn't worth it." So what does all of this mean in court? It means that if the footage DaBaby claims to have is real, if it shows even a hint of personal familiarity, then the silence from Beyoncé's network isn't just protection, it's participation. Because someone had to organize her security, someone had to approve the event schedule, someone had to greenlight her presence at those parties, someone had to watch as Diddy placed his hand on her back and say nothing. And now that silence is under cross-examination. Because in an industry that thrives on denial, one simple truth is echoing louder than ever. If nobody saw it, it's because someone made sure they didn't. And if nobody spoke about it, it's because someone was told not to. DaBaby may have revealed the footage, but the people around Beyoncé, they may have helped it stay hidden. To understand the full weight of DaBaby's courtroom revelation, you have to understand the machinery that allowed it to stay hidden for so long. Because Diddy didn't operate as just a celebrity, he operated like a system, a power broker, a man who didn't just influence culture, he influenced people. And now that system is being exposed. From the very beginning of his career, Diddy mastered the art of transactional power. His brand wasn't just about music, it was about control. He gave opportunities, he opened doors, but behind every favor was an invisible price tag. According to multiple insiders now cooperating with the investigation, Diddy's world was built on access in exchange for silence. His parties weren't just parties, they were tests. His studios weren't just studios, they were surveillance zones. His relationships weren't just connections, they were tools. And in that world, no one was too big to be useful, not even Beyoncé. If what DaBaby said is true, if Diddy really believed he had a claim on the most protected woman in music, then that belief didn't come out of nowhere. It came from habit, a pattern, a career of turning proximity into power. He was known for blurring lines, business and pleasure, mentorship and manipulation, favor and control. He'd invite stars to his homes, offer lavish vacations, introduce them to industry elites, and then build quiet leverage over them. A former producer, now testifying under a sealed court order, described it best. Diddy never owed you, you owed him, and you didn't even know when it happened, but one day he'd remind you. That reminder could be a leaked story, a canceled endorsement, a party invite revoked, a private conversation suddenly not so private. And in some circles, those reminders weren't just professional, they were personal, which brings us back to Beyoncé. If she ever stepped into Diddy's orbit, even briefly, it may not have been about attraction or betrayal. It may have been about leverage. The way Diddy treated her in that alleged backstage video, the way he placed his hand on her, whispered to her, stood close to her, it didn't look like seduction. It looked like possession. DaBaby described it on the stand as quiet power. Not loud, not aggressive, but undeniable. The kind of confidence that doesn't ask for permission, because it already knows it's protected. And that's what makes this moment in court so chilling. If Diddy saw Beyoncé not as a peer, but as a pawn, if her team allowed that closeness out of fear or favor, then this isn't just a scandal. It's a case study in how unchecked power warps everything it touches. And now, for the first time, that power is being dissected under oath. Before anyone ever testified, before DaBaby uttered Beyoncé's name in court, people in the industry already knew something had changed. It was subtle, a shift, a silence. The kind of move you don't notice until it's already done. That move? Jay-Z stepping away from Diddy. From the outside, it looked like a natural evolution. Two moguls going their separate ways, building empires in parallel. But from the inside, it felt colder, sharper, deliberate, because Jay-Z didn't just drift. He pulled back, intentionally, strategically. And now, with DaBaby's revelations painting a new picture, that quiet distance is starting to make sense. Multiple insiders now say Jay-Z's camp began restricting access to certain events as early as 2016. Diddy, once a fixture at Roc Nation brunches and exclusive parties, started disappearing from the guest list. Not because of scheduling conflicts, not because of falling out over business, but because something had happened, something no one would talk about. A former Roc Nation operations staffer who asked not to be named said it plainly. After that BET Awards show, everything changed. That's the same 2015 event where DaBaby claims the now infamous backstage footage of Diddy and Beyoncé was captured. And while no one in Jay-Z's circle has confirmed its existence, sources close to the situation say that by 2016, Beyoncé's appearance schedules were being locked down tighter than ever before. Routes were changed, access lists shortened. The Beyoncé lock, they called it, quietly behind the scenes. The shift wasn't just physical, it was emotional. Business partnerships between Jay-Z and Diddy slowed. Collaborative projects fell through. The playful, competitive energy the two once shared turned cold. And in a world where silence often speaks louder than words, Jay-Z said nothing publicly, but said everything through distance. Some now believe it wasn't the footage itself that fractured the bond, but what it represented. Not an affair, but an overstep, a blurred boundary, a reminder that even someone as powerful as Jay-Z couldn't fully control the forces around him. If Diddy had once gotten too close to Beyoncé, physically, emotionally, or even symbolically, then Jay-Z's retreat wasn't just about image, it was personal. And like any powerful man protecting a legacy, Jay didn't make noise. He just closed the door, quietly, permanently. Now, years later, that silence is on trial. Because if DaBaby's story holds up, if that moment in 2015 really did change everything, then Jay-Z's quiet distance wasn't coldness. It was containment. A last-ditch effort to protect his empire from a man who knew exactly how to shake it. If DaBaby's testimony exposed a bombshell, the media's response revealed something even more disturbing, a deafening silence. No tabloid frenzy, no major headlines, no cable news panels dissecting every word. Just a ripple of whispers buried under other trending stories. And that begs the question, how does a courtroom moment involving Beyoncé, Diddy, and alleged unseen footage not dominate the news cycle? The answer is simple. Because the media was never meant to report it. For decades, the entertainment industry hasn't just shaped what the public sees, It's carefully curated what they don't. Celebrities don't just have publicists, they have gatekeepers, public relations firms with deep connections to newsrooms, editors, and television producers. Relationships built over years of mutual benefit. And Beyoncé's team? They don't play checkers, they play chess. Multiple former entertainment reporters have now come forward, confirming what many suspected. Beyoncé is protected by an unspoken agreement across the media landscape. You don't run unverified stories about her. You don't speculate. You don't poke at rumors. Because if you do, you lose access. One former magazine editor explained it bluntly. You blacklist yourself. No invites, no quotes, no exclusives. That's the death penalty in our world. And Diddy? He built his own fortress too. For years, he leveraged relationships with power players across industries, journalists, producers, digital platforms. He threw the parties they couldn't say no to. He gave them moments that generated traffic, ratings, and relevance. In exchange, he got something far more valuable: protection. So when Beyoncé and Diddy's names began to hover near each other, especially in contexts that couldn't be explained away as business, those same protectors stepped in. Stories were shelved, tips were ignored. Writers were told not to pursue certain angles. One high-level entertainment blogger admitted they received a cease and desist letter after simply teasing a deep dive into Beyoncé's early industry affiliations. The blog post was deleted before it was ever published. And now, in this courtroom, the cost of that silence is finally coming due. Because DaBaby didn't go to a gossip site, he went to the witness stand, and for the first time, the story can't be buried. His testimony, if proven accurate, doesn't just call out individuals, it calls out the system, the one that hides inconvenient truths in exchange for continued access. The one that silences victims, witnesses, and now, possibly the truth about Beyoncé and Diddy. So as this trial unfolds, the world isn't just watching for what happens next in court. They're watching who dares to speak, who finally prints the headline, and who keeps playing the game. If DaBaby's footage is real, if it truly shows what he claims, it could change everything. Not just for Diddy, not just for Beyoncé, but for the entire culture of celebrity control and silence. Because this isn't just a scandal, it's a fracture, a crack in the carefully polished image of power, loyalty, and perfection that some of the world's most famous names have built their legacies on. For Beyoncé, the stakes couldn't be higher. Her brand is synonymous with discipline, elegance, and protection. She's one of the few global icons who has navigated fame without public meltdowns, scandals, or controversies. But if this video surfaces, if it even suggests emotional proximity to a man now accused of systemic abuse and manipulation, it could create a ripple effect across her fan base, endorsements, and public trust. And for Jay-Z, the questions get even murkier. If he saw the footage years ago and said nothing, what else has he kept hidden? What compromises were made behind closed doors to protect the empire they built together? For Diddy, the implications are obvious. DaBaby's testimony ties him not just to past misconduct, but to the very top of the industry food chain. It paints him not just as a predator, but as someone who weaponized his access to manipulate the most powerful circles in music. But perhaps the most chilling part of it all is what this says about the system. Because if Beyoncé, the most guarded celebrity of her generation, can be touched by this, then no one is truly safe from it. It means the walls built to protect the stars aren't always strong enough. It means silence isn't always safety. DaBaby may have set the fire, but the world is now watching what burns. And as the trial continues, only one question remains: who's next?